Welcome to our podcast, Inspiring Living, with me, Mark Candelaria. I am an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I'm the founder and now a partner of a fabulous 25-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours to Italy, Spain, and now Napa over the last 20 years, and in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. Our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspiring living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture into all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. Sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Because inspiring living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. This is how Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. Welcome and good morning, everybody. We are in week 6 of working from home over at Candelaria Design, and we're going strong. We're keeping it going. We've been very productive. And so far, so good. I just don't know how long it's going to last. I think we're going to take the stance that whenever they say we can come back, we're going to stretch it out an extra month just to be on the safe side. Because I personally think there'll be a little bit of a boomerang factor here. I mean, we've got summer in our favor, and I see we got 100-degree temperatures around the corner. So I don't think that can hurt, let's put it that way. But, you know, I think we're going to have some kind of little backlash here of Mr. Corona coming back maybe this fall. So we'll just have to see what happens. I mean, no one knows for sure. I mean, you can listen to every side of the coin on this thing. And I think it ultimately comes down to you making up your own mind and doing what you think is right and doing what you think is safe and the best for your team and your clients and your family, of course. So I think we're just going to have to all do our best, communicate and play it by ear and, go forward in a positive way. And that's what we're trying to do. Meanwhile, our office remodel and expansion are coming close to the finish line. We have a few last little details. We're going to finish our backsplash in the kitchen this week. And I put a nice, quick little tour of our remodel and expansion on IGTV video over the weekend, so check that out. But we're really excited. I mean, we're going to do some fun things. Once we can get everybody together, we want to do some Friday afternoon happy hours in our GE Monogram demonstration kitchen. And so we're hoping we can do that sometime, maybe squeeze one in before the summer gets really hot, and then we'll try to pick it up in the fall. But our plan is to do that every Friday afternoon, and basically the price of admission is a bottle of wine and or a bottle of booze, and come on in, bring in some friends, do some networking. We'll have some great food, and when the food runs out, well then that's it. I guess we'll just drink what you guys brought in. But the idea is just to get people together, have some good times, do a little networking, and hopefully get us back to some kind of normal. We'll see. Meanwhile, I want to thank Phoenix Home and Garden Magazine for their feature of our beautiful project up in Silverleaf. Great feature. We made the cover. One of our bathroom shots is on the cover. Fantastic team of John Schultz Development, who did all the construction. Earth and Images, Isabel, Nika, and their team did the interiors. Berghoff Design. We had Creative Designs and Lighting, and then a whole slew of really fantastic subcontractors and artisans, and of course vendors that help pull the whole thing together. And it's a beautiful job. Really, really turned out great. Speaking of our kitchen, we're going to, once we get that backsplash done, we're going to try to do some pasta making classes live on Instagram. So get ready for that. I'm hoping to do some of those and have some fun with that. So I think my daughters are going to help me put it all together, and that should be a lot of fun. We've been getting a lot of requests for pasta making, and we've been selling our pasta makers like crazy. So keep those up. I really appreciate that, guys. The pasta maker, by the way, is available on our website, candelariadesign.com, under, I believe it's under, right at the very bottom of the tabs there. There's a Candelaria collection. Just click on that. And we have a nice COVID-19 special going on right now. So make an order and get on in there and get the pasta maker ready so that you're ready to go live with us on our Instagram class. Speaking of our website, we've done a lot of updates. There's a lot of new projects added, and we have a whole new recipe section that we're constantly adding new recipes to. I get so many requests for our recipes, and so we're putting them up there on the website, and you can just dive right in and break the mundane food coma that we're all in, and mix it up with some fun Candelaria recipes. Speaking of that, Tiffany's been helping me with the blog. We got some new blogs that we've been posting, and we got some good ones coming up. And my team is just cranking. They're doing such a great job. Lots of great projects on the boards and under construction. We got projects in North Carolina, Nashville, Albuquerque, California. We got a project brewing in Palm Beach, Florida, and even possibly one in Jamaica. And you know who I'm talking to there, buddy. Thank you so much. So thanks for the listens. Thanks for the reviews. Thanks for the ratings. Please give us the reviews and ratings. They really help us move up the food chain on the podcast vibe there. So thanks again. We've got a great podcast today. I've got Tracey Martin, who is a transformational life coach. I mean, talk about an interesting lady and some of the things that are going on. And what I found interesting are some of the comparables of what happens in her field and exactly what happens in architecture and with our clients. There was a lot of parallels, and I found it very fascinating. So give it a listen. You're going to enjoy it. She is just amazing. And I walked away with really being fired up and wanting to get her into our office and maybe do some analysis of how we do things and how we interact. And I just think there's always room for improvement in everything that we do. So I think this lady is pretty remarkable. So stay tuned. We've got that coming up next, and we've got some great podcasts coming up in the next couple weeks. I've got Anita Lane coming on. I got Pooja Babra, who's one of my clients, and she's big in the medical industry, so I think she'll have some interesting perspective on this whole COVID-19. So thanks a lot. You guys stay very healthy, stay safe, and we love you all. Today's guest is the multi-talented Tracey Martin, whose accolades include Immersive Transformational Life Coach, author, fashion designer, sustainable living strategist, and social entrepreneur. For over 25 years, Tracey has coached hundreds of individuals, teens, and families on their journeys of growth in the area of wellness, careers, parenting, relationships, spirituality, and self. Her approach focuses on guiding, supporting, teaching, and awakening the greatness within each person. Okay, so how perfect is that for my podcast, Inspiring Living? You're made for this, Tracey. This is awesome. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Absolutely. That was a great thing to say. I appreciate all those words, right? It's fun to do your purpose out in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And we're doing this on a Friday afternoon after this is week 5 of our isolation for our company. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but I know we escape a little bit. Isabel and I had a meeting with a new project this afternoon, so that was encouraging. And so we get out a little bit, but we're definitely trying to hunker down and just stay home as much as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, I get that. I'm actually considered essential as a coach.
Okay,
so
there you go. That's perfect.
Yeah, so I work with still with the families I don't take any new people on right now, and if I do, they're all through Zoom coaching or FaceTime coaching and that. But yeah, I mean, my big thing is we get out every day, we hike, vitamin D for sure. Mental health is so important, and so we encourage our girls do that as well, and they have maybe one friend they can go hang out with and have lunch with at a picnic out in the park or at a field. To make sure that we're, honoring all that. But yeah, the mental health part is huge to get out of the house. And even if it's just taking a walk around the block, you have to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I've been encouraging my team to do because, like I said, we're all kind of hunkered down working from home. And it does help to just get out. Like this morning I went and I got up early because I like to try to, beat the crowds, and I went up and hiked the 32nd Street Trail. And it's just so nice, and especially now. I mean, the air is so clean. And I posted a little video this morning. It's just like, it's so beautiful, you know?
Well, that's I think that's something that nobody really, attributed for, because I mean, with the sustainable living stuff that I do, it's the same thing. It's our world's getting a divine reset without the cars on the road,
Right.
without the pollution, and there's always those beautiful things. I know in California, some of my clients were telling me that they can see clearer than they've ever been able to see before.
Yeah.
And, those are the things that I like to focus on. I know there's a lot of other stuff underlying and going on, but there's so much good that's going to come from this as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of lessons that we are all learning, and I think it's real important to all of us to just open our eyes to those lessons, because this isn't going to last forever. I mean, obviously we're going to get back to some form of where we were before. I'm just hoping some of the lessons we're learning are going to be absorbed into what we do and how we practice our lives after this.
Well, and I think that's a big thing. One of the things I talk with my clients about is they usually come in and ask me, about what's the new normal going to be. And my response is always, well, you can decide what gets to stay and then what you want to leave.
That's exactly
you can decide
right.
that you're going to walk away from some stuff and let it go, because you're going to realize that your life was probably calmer and was more focused, and, leaving all that other stuff. It's like, I laugh with some of my teens. They're like, yeah, instead of going to a club down in Tempe, we're all hiking the mountain. I go, don't you feel better? Isn't that just, getting more clarity? And
Yep.
My 20-somethings that like to go out and party and drink, they're like, wow, I actually feel really good.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Right. Amazing unfortunately, we just had to have it forced on us instead of you guys taking the lessons.
Well, I think it's always interesting how these things get quote unquote forced on us, but that's a whole nother topic, I guess. But I think it is really interesting to see what becomes our new normal, and I think you'll agree with me. Our new normal is what we make our new normal to be. It's us. It's not the normal of the community or the world. We create our normal. We're the authors of our normal.
100%. And that's one of the beautiful things, with doing what I've done for so long, is to be able to help them realize the power that they have to create that.
Right.
And so oftentimes you feel like you're out of control. And I said, well, you never had the control in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you can only control your thoughts and how you mindfully respond. And if there's 3 questions I asked my teens and my young adults I work with when all this happened. I said, because they were all texting me and calling me, and they're fear-based, and, they have anxiety. And I said, where are you now? I'm sitting on my sofa. Are you safe? Yes, I am. Do you have what you need? Yes, I do. Okay.
Yeah.
Then put yourself back in that calm center,
right?
And then decide how you're going to respond to things. Don't and then what you consume in the way of media. I mean,
right.
That's another big thing, is to vet that information.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I mean, you can go from channel to channel, and the world is completely different. I mean,
right.
It's like,
right.
what's
right.
real?
You're exactly, and that's why I asked him. I said, "What's your reality right here, right now?"
Yeah.
That's all you've got, because you can go down rabbit holes, you can go down other people's points of views and information, and it's all there. It's like a buffet.
Yep.
It's all there, but you can decide and pick and choose how your world's going to be.
That's exactly
and that's
right.
Up to you.
I love that. So quickly give us an overview. I gave a quick introduction, but kind of tell us about what it is that you do right now. What's going on with Tracey Martin in terms of your profession?
I'm super excited. So I've been doing this for about 28 years. Like I said, 4th generation entrepreneur. I was raised in such a way that, I didn't even know there was a box you were supposed to stay in. So I think that's an interesting thing when people say, I'm putting my kids in a box. I go, I didn't even know there was a box. My parents were the epitome of grace as parenting. And so I was very blessed. And so for me, today in our world of what we're dealing with and what my industry is doing, I'm actually excited for where it's going. I think like in any industry, including, the ones that you're involved in, there's always this curve and this learning curve and this exploitative nature that happens within our industries when they believe there's an opportunity to capitalize. And for me, it just goes back to, I'm doing this by a purpose-driven life and a calling that I have been seeded for, and I will show up for time and time again. And so for me, I have a bigger vision for this. I think the coaching industry, in my opinion, is cannibalizing itself at this moment. And we really have to take a step back and realize that, you can't be a 25-year-old life coach. You can be something else. You can be, all these other things, but then you're just a friend on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
And I think that's something. So with my industry, I'm excited to see that more accountability happen, more people like myself that have had, 25 plus years in this thing,
right,
really understand that, we have an opportunity to shift this stuff and to really create a better conversation for our own industry. And so I'm doing quite a bit of layered work. I have my full curriculum. I also have playbooks, which I'm focusing on more right now, because I believe that in today's world, we have so much information hitting us. And to actually dive into a 12-week course or whatever it might be, even if it's for personal growth, I think it's a big time commitment. It can be very overwhelming. So I'm basically taking all my playbooks and then we're putting them online to basically be small, digestible tidbits, if you will, of information, 40 pages. You can get through it in a couple hours. And it just seems to meet people where they are. It's very niche driven. Like right now, one of the big ones that I'm working on is life in transition. And so that addresses every single thing from my families that are going through so much because they were all of a sudden thrown into being
right,
a teacher and a parent, all this kind of stuff. And then my young adults who their world changed after coming home from spring break, they never went to school again.
right.
And there's no markers in their world. There's no, prom or graduation
right,
or last day of school. And so, understand that. So I have a teen board of ambassadors that I work with. And so we're also adapting that to young life during transition. And because the messaging is typically consistent and very cohesive, but the delivery has to be really important, whether it's a teen demographic or the parent and the adult demographic. And so we work that duality here to where the ultimate goal is to create that common ground. And what does that look like in the way of a family or a business or what it might be?
Oh, that's
so
very interesting.
I'm super excited about where this is going.
Yeah. So is your focus primarily on teenagers and young people, or do you deal with old people like me, or is it across the board?
I have my youngest client is 10, my oldest is 72.
Okay,
and
cool.
So I have multi-generations, which I love that because I think there's so much wisdom that we need to remember to share from generation to generation. But we have to instill the respect in the younger generation, the value of that.
Yeah.
And so for me, right now I'm focused on, I do 15, there's usually 16 to 25-year-olds in my teen transformation tours and in my workshops. And then I do the adult and parenting part in my adult workshops, the transformation tours. So I have the duality, like I said, because it's like someone can be 65 and own a business, but you're going to have to hire 20-somethings.
Yeah, totally.
How are you going to communicate with them? And then you've got the 20-somethings that are going to have to understand that you are, a business owner and deserve a level of respect, but you can't just be a boss. You have to be a leader.
Right.
And you have to be a servant leader. And so that's really kind of why I have that, I'm very blessed to have the holistic approach because I see, I move in with people across the country for 3 days. I work with them on every level, and then I'm there for 3 days, and then I'm out. I work with immersively within homes or businesses because you can't hide anything,
right.
And so oftentimes, especially if you're looking at the opposite part of coaching, which is the therapy and the counseling part of it, a lot of people that you talk to, they're embarrassed to tell their real truth in a clinical office. And so for me, you can't hide from me, and I can immediately see the communication and the way that the energy is. And so it helps me. I may have a point of entry into a particular family or business or individual, but it's a very layered process. And like I said, I'm very lucky and very privileged to be able to walk into someone's home and be invited in to actually be in service and help the growth.
That's amazing. Well, we have an extra bedroom here, and given we've got an 18-year-old and we've had some challenges.
That's my favorite.
You might be living here and enjoying some of my great meals, so we'll see how that all shakes out.
You just let me know what day.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I'm being pretty serious, so we'll have to talk about that after this. But
absolutely.
So let's go back to the beginning. Where are you from, and are you from Arizona originally, or?
No, I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, actually in the suburbs. I'm a farm girl.
Okay, cool.
Born and raised on a farm, organic farm. And I was the kid that was, Tracey, go out and pick everything we need for dinner.
Yeah.
And massive garden. Yeah, I was a barrel racer with quarter horses.
Cool.
And, and had our own farm and stuff. And so I was that. I was, chucking bales of hay in the summer, and which was an amazing way to grow up. And so I was very lucky. I was an athlete all my life. Played soccer for 12 years. Done all the good stuff. I tried to do the American Gladiators a couple times, and
wow.
So yeah, so just, I had a lot of great experience. I competed in bodybuilding years ago, and so I'm very fitness minded. At 18 years old, I was at spring break in Florida and saw a magazine and thought, okay, this is too cool. I can do this, and so jumped in, and that was probably the beginning of understanding how important that our wealth, it really comes in the way of our health.
Right.
And that really was kind of a catalyst. And then, like I said, being raised the way that I was raised, and just having a home that was very permissive on the way that I wanted to make my choices. And my parents didn't necessarily, have any bad things. So I think so much of it being born in the Midwest and being in that type of a family. My dad doesn't even know, I told him this years ago, but I was a kid. I was probably 6 or 7 years old. And I was in the barn with our horses. And I remember, this thing came, I wanted to be a veterinarian, go figure. And so my dad, being the incredible entrepreneur that he is and the father that he is, he said, okay, he didn't question anything. He went in his wood shop. He makes beautiful wood furniture. And he went in his wood shop and he made a sign. And it said T&K, my sister's Kelly, T&K Veterinary Hospital. And he signed it up, and he hung it up in the corner of the barn. And he goes, now go find some animals that need your help.
There you go.
And so I was always met with, what if, or go check it out, or run it
make
to
it
the
happen.
end.
Go make it happen.
Exactly. And so, and you don't realize that lesson, when you're young, but man, to have that as an imprint as a young child, that's pretty major. I never thought, it's not like I can't, it's how can I?
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times you don't realize those things till you are older in life, and you look back and you go, so that's where that came from. That's where I got that seed that eventually became my garden,
Exactly. And then there's always a harvest, and that's what people can't wait for, but that's what we have to wait for.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's so true. The harvest is the end. You enjoy the fruits of your labor and all that, but I think what I've learned is just enjoy the gardening process, enjoy the journey,
Yes.
Get out there and enjoy the garden. Once you harvest it, it's gone, Yep. But it's the growing of it and the watching it develop. That's the best part of the garden, in my opinion.
It's the cultivating of it all, right?
Cultivating, that's the great word right there.
It just really is. I think that's something that we, in today's world, because we live in such a fast-paced world, we can't even wait for our, the satellite to bounce our signal back on our iPhone. So it's like, to realize that, one of the things I work with families is a beautiful word, that 2 words they don't understand, is patience and surrender, and
beautiful.
And the patience part of it is just so important, and you can surrender to the process. I know it sounds very cliche, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And the growth that comes from that, and even in the adversity, even like what we're going through now, if you can have that intentionality of your conversations with people, there's so much there that we just have to let happen, but yet we can allow it, that it's for us, that It's not against us. And that just, I love that. I actually have the word surrender tattooed on my arm, and it's just like, it's in French, and it says Remata à la grâce, which is surrender to grace. And
beautiful.
It's so important. It's so important. And that word's gotten me through more things than I could even think of.
Yeah. Well, I just think, this whole thing, again, I think it's such an opportunity for us to just slow down a little bit and kind of make a reassessment of where are you going on this hamster wheel?
Right.
Where are we such in a hurry to get to that's just virtually spinning around, getting us nowhere? And
no, you're right.
I think people just need to start realizing this is it, guys. This you got one garden to grow, and how are you going to grow it?
Right. Well, and the opportunity is here, and then it's being able to actually see the opportunity, and that's one of the reasons why I've actually, like coaching people through this is really fascinating, because you've got like a multitude of perceptions, and when I coach a family, I'm always like, okay, the parents are focused on the economy, are focused on what's going to happen in the future. I got to provide for my family. The kids then are dealing with, oh my gosh, my high school year is done. I didn't even know it. I can't see my friends.
Right. Their perspective.
I bought my prom dress and can't wear it.
Yeah.
And, and college, it might be starting,
Yeah.
And so to be able to kind of bridge those conversations, and then to be able to explain to the parents that, sometimes you got to take a step back, you know, and there's a gap in that those kids have to fill, but they can't fill if they don't have the opportunity. And so the dynamic of it all is just fascinating to me. And even like when I coach business owners, you know, CEOs in that are beautifully running their companies, but are train wrecks behind closed doors. And then you realize that, you know, if you're not addressing yourself from a holistic standpoint, imagine how much more successful you could be in life, depending upon how you define that, of course. But, you know, if you could actually come and own where you are and grow who you are, because then you have that sphere of influence.
Right. No, that's so
just,
true.
It just keeps going.
So true. I mean, I always see. I'm always trying to coach my team and my company, and you know, just try to inspire people. I think people get so beat up all the time, and it's just like let's try to lift things up, focus on some of the good things everybody's doing, and not just the bad things. And I think we get so caught up in trying to fix things and trying to make things better, and we do it through focusing on the things that aren't being done right. And I think you can create just as much growth by focusing on the things that people are doing well. You know.
Well, and that's one of my big things whenever somebody hires me. You know, it depends on who it is. If it's a individual and we're looking at, you know, their life or a relationship, if it's a family, if it's a parent, and I have parents that come to me and I'm always like, you know, here's the thing. I'm not going to I don't fix what you perceive as wrong. I uncover everything that's right.
Yeah, that's cool.
And when we can do that, you know, and the reason why that's such an important mindset is the fact that I don't see your child as your child. I see them as a thriving, incredible individual.
Right.
And there's a different dynamic there. Yeah. Because a lot of times, especially in like if there's, you know, divorced homes or blended homes, a lot of times whenever
I'm right there. I get it.
Yeah, and so whenever a family is, you know, divorced, typically if one of the parents moves out, that's at that age when that child is, that's where they see their child.
Yeah.
And they forget that the kid keeps growing and growing, and all of a sudden they're 18, 19 years old, and you know, and it's just, but again, it's just opening the conversation with being humble and a lot of humility. And this is not judgment. This is not anything other than where are we going to go and how are we going to get there?
Right. No, that's spot on. I love that. So how did you get from? So you mentioned you went down to Florida. How did you get to Arizona?
Well, no. So I was just down there in spring break. So no, I was born and raised in Missouri. Stayed there all my life, and then up until we've been in Arizona for 25 years. So it's funny because my husband, we've been married 26 years, so we were recently married, but before that, we would visit my sister here. She's here. Okay. And she has an incredible equine therapy place in Queen Creek, and so we would come and hang out with her, and then on one of the flights home, my husband is like, he's in construction and building and land development, so he was the guy that was out in all the elements in Missouri.
Yep.
And he basically said, hey, if I can find a good enough job, can we move? And I'm happy wherever I am, and I can duplicate whatever I need to because my core is me. So, and I had a big personal training business in St. Louis, and so I said, I can wrap this up here, and I can put together, you know, making sure my clients taken care of. And so, well, come to find out, he found a job in a week.
Wow. So when you say personal training back in Missouri, was it fitness training or was it life coaching?
It was it was a combination of both. So I started out. I was a pioneer in the fitness industry back in the late '80s because I got into it by way of myself. But then I started working with people. But then I realized this is kind of what put me on my trajectory where I am today. Is that at the end of the day, you can be in a gym, but there's so much more to who you are.
Right.
And striving for the physical is only a tiny drop of it. And so I would work with their people's doctors. I was grocery shopping for them. I was meal prepping for them. I was doing this back in the late 80s before anybody even had a name for it. And so I saw the need for, you know, so much of this, but there really wasn't a quote unquote, you know, name for it. So, you know, the personal training or the personal fitness or the wellness was really kind of what stuck. And then whenever I went back to school for transformational life coaching, I realized, you know, that this is really has always been what I've been doing. And I just have never had a label for it, you know, and the fact that I kind of made it my own, you know, I would always go above and beyond because I always believe in giving more. And So I would pick up my clients, dry cleaning on the way to their house, or I would help them grocery shop to make sure they were getting the right foods and the right, with the right ingredients. And then I would go and meet with one of their doctors and find out that they were getting all their questions answered with all the information that they wanted. And so and it was interesting because it just kind of grew from there. And advocating for people as well, especially older generations, sitting with them with their doctor to make sure they get the right information, and then weeding through that. So yeah, it was very multi-layered, and it was very much a process, and that was really kind of how it started, from doing this. And then when we moved to Arizona, I duplicated it. I actually I had a gym in Scottsdale, off the corner of Shea and Scottsdale I built, and I was in the middle of wanting to do more personal development within there. And then I had my oldest daughter. And so a gentleman came in and wanted to buy the club, and we made a great deal. And I stayed on for a year. Mm-hmm. And then I stayed home and raised my girls after that for a while, and focused in on, that was the season I was in, was, being a stay-at-home mom, and did that. But I kept continuing my education and things like that, and still working with people here and there, but not jumping back in quite a few years ago that I did with both feet.
So where do you go to get certification as an integrated immersive transformational life coach? Is there a school?
So I went down to Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, is where I have my transformational life coaching certificate through. And that's kind of an interesting thing that you asked me that, because that was a big thing for me, was, because there's a lot of business coaching schools, and now unfortunately, I went and signed up for a bunch of these newsletters because I was really curious to see the shift in my industry. And, I was really disappointed because there's certifications out there. Oh, well, go ahead, in 3 days, you can get your coaching certification, and then you're coaching a revenue stream. And like, you're missing the whole point. This isn't about the revenue stream. This is about literally impacting lives.
Right.
And, because those of us that are called for, things like this, you would do it whether you got paid or not.
Yeah.
You just so happen to have to make a living as well. And so, and I think that was the big thing for me, was I wanted to go to that program that understood that it was a very holistic approach. And there's some other great coaching schools around. And for me, they were too clinical, or they were more business coaching, mm-hmm. To me, I always came back to the person, behind every CEO, behind every, I don't care what you are, teacher, student, you are a human being doing life.
Yeah, it's the seed.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't care what you're doing. I care about who you are while you're doing it.
Right. That makes total sense. Yeah. So how much training have you done? I mean, how much schooling or whatever did you have to do?
I've had a couple years with Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, and then there's 2 other schools that are coming up right now that I want to look into. I have not done a lot of that because they're really kind of focusing on making the money. And I know you've probably seen, like, a lot of the sales funnels that flows around. They bring you down this funnel of do this. Oh, and by the way, at the end of the day, it's only $97, And I realize that that's a great tool for a lot of people. It just never sat well with me, mm-hmm. Because I wanted to, here I am, you're paying for my wisdom, my time, my experience, and my knowledge, and then we're going to make a great blueprint for you for your life. It's like what you do when you build something.
Yep.
You have this blueprint, and then you can have the beautifully laid blueprint, but if life throws a curveball, you got to be able to adapt to it.
Right.
And so oftentimes these courses that are out there are literally just black and white, and it's not life. And so
well, it's the same thing in our business. I mean, anyone can go out there and get a drafting software program for, a couple $100 and call themselves a draftsman and start designing houses. And there's plenty of them out there that do that, but an architect goes to school for 5-6 years and then 3 years of training to get your degree or to get your experience, and you got to take a test, and then you got to pass all of those, and so it's a big difference,
And you learn so much by doing, and so much. Yeah. Every house that you build is an education.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the way that I look. I mean, I have coached and trained anyone from the stay-at-home mom to the Fortune 500 company executive to professional athletes. I mean, I trained a lot of athletes when I had my gym, and then we ended up doing coaching for the family. And a lot of, I have a woman in Dallas at 2,500 employees, and she's at the head of the table. And, so again, it's the I think one of the biggest things in my industry that they're not focusing on in the way of teaching someone, which I noticed this was also missing in even my education that I had But luckily, with the other certifications I got, I was able to kind of hone in is adaptability. Because I have to be able to assess on the fly when I meet someone, and if I'm a good fit, I'm a good fit. If I'm not, I will tell you I'm not.
Yeah.
And then I have 2 or 3 people that I think are incredible, and I will happily introduce you to them, because if it's not a good fit for me, it's not going to be for you.
Right. No, that's interesting, because it's the same thing in our business. I mean, sometimes you just don't click with somebody. It's like, okay, do I really want to spend my time with these people, and vice versa? It's like, let me get you with somebody else that you might click better with. And
right, and it's so funny, because I've kind of been called the Nanny McVie of coaches, and so it's funny because when you don't want me, I'm all over you and in your face.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And then whenever you do want me and you don't want me to leave, I got to go. And that's another thing with the industry that and I mean, I don't want to call any industries out, but we know they're out there, but they create this downline and that's how they pay their rent. And for me, I would much rather give you your tools and your skills and grow you and equip you and then watch you fly. And then I'll move on to somebody else to work with. I truly love seeing people thrive, and you don't always need me. Once you've got what you need, go use it.
Yeah, that's cool.
And the industry, most of the industries, I have a client that came to me a couple of years ago. She was in therapy for 17 years.
Yeah.
And
what does that mean?
Well, that becomes basically you're addicted to personal development.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
And so for me, I'm like, you really don't need me, And she says, no, I just need a little bit of. I said, okay. I said, let's work together for a little while, and then you're on your own, because you can't if you get the skills but you don't use them, you're not growing.
Right. You're just becoming codependent on your therapist.
Exactly, and that is part of the systemically broken systems that we have out there that I truly believe that are part of the problem.
Yep.
And that's not what this is about, and that's why I said the industry, I can see the coaching industry, they're going down that path, and it's just, I won't be a part of it. I can tell you that.
Yeah, good for you. I love that.
No, I truly believe that my goal is to grow you and then get out of your way.
Yep. I love that. So tell us about your philosophy, where everything is connected and that everything matters, and how that reflects in your coaching. You kind of touched on it already a little bit, but I thought that was an interesting line.
Well, it's funny because, like I said, when somebody hires me, I have a point of entry. So for instance, I'll use one of my clients in California. So, she comes from a divorced family, a couple kids, and she has to travel back and forth from coast to coast. And, she hired me in the initial phase to work with her whole family to level up their communication. And so that was my point of entry. But then once I get in there, I'm like, okay, hang on a minute. We've got really unhealthy, things going on here. We've got a lot of miscommunication, a lot of power struggles between parents. And so one of the things that I always do if I'm hired by a blended family, of course, as long as it's a good relationship, I always ask to speak with everyone that has influence within the family. Because if we're coaching and the one parent where the kids work with, I'm coaching, and then there's another influence, I need to know what that is so we can make sure everything is cohesive.
Right.
And everything, we all know there's like keystone habits, so keystone habits are things that, like, for instance, a good fitness program is a keystone habit to implement, because it's got ripple effects of growth that you feel better, you're more clear-headed, you're healthier, you have more energy. So that's like a keystone habit, and that's a holistic approach to where everything is connected. So if I feel better, I eat better, I start to be more active, my mind is clearer, I can see things better, I show up better for my relationships, then my relationships are better. Then when I go to work, I don't have any drama I'm bringing with me.
Right.
So that's one of the things, like, especially if you have employees, everything that goes on in their backstory comes into your story.
Yep.
And so that's why I look at the person and healing the person to where whatever environment they're in, they show up at their best.
Right.
And because otherwise, we all know there's people that are great, really good business people or the head of a household or whatever, but they might be suffering from a drinking problem, or they might be suffering from depression, or things that nobody really knows. And that's what we want to address, because it will definitely affect, especially in a younger household, it will definitely affect the imprints on young minds. And so it's leveling up ourselves as parents. It's leveling up ourselves as, business leaders, or whatever we might be in this world, or just, who you are as a family member. because everything who you are is connected from a level of you're the true north, you're the main core.
Right.
And if that's healthy, you can deal with adversity, you can deal with difficult situations because you have a really good point of reference that you're going to relate to how you make your decisions in life.
Yeah, exactly. And I noticed that both in my personal life, in my family, and in managing my company. I mean, you can get one person in there that is, pardon the pun, Debbie Downer, or just you don't know what's going on in their life, but they're bringing that energy to the office, and that energy can be like a cancer if you don't watch it. I mean, it can really affect a lot of other people in a not so good way. And my problem is always, as a leader of my company, and I can see that happening. Is that my job to pull them aside and kind of help them work through that stuff? Or do I hook them up with somebody like you? I always feel so conflicted about what to do because I'm one of those people that I just want to help everybody,
Right.
And so I see that, and I've done plenty of therapy in my time, and so I see the problem. I don't understand maybe where it's coming from, but I recognize it, and I just want to get in there and help them so badly,
Well, and that's your intention, Mark. It kind of goes back to, in your house. It's like if and this is typical, if you say something to your child and I say something to your child, they're going to hear me more than they'll hear you.
Yeah.
And so you also have to understand about the same thing with if you are a born servant leader and you grow people as well as you grow profits in business and you have those intentional conversations and they will actually get the message from you. That's amazing. And you have to assess the relationship, which means you have to reflect on it. It's like if somebody comes into your work and you have a predetermined, perception of this person, but yet they're trying to grow, are you able to go into a neutral space and basically say, hey, I'd like to help you, but I'm not attached to your outcome.
Right.
And if your agenda is, I only want to make you better for my business,
right,
then you're not actually approaching it from a neutral space of growing the person. And that's a very interesting dynamic to be able to do that because it's difficult.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It is because you have to go into it with no attachment and no agenda.
Yeah.
And that's where it's tough to speak those words. And when you can do that, and that's why I said it always goes back to who you are as a person. When you can do that for the better of the person without attachment, then they can come back in your organization and have a very grateful heart and show up that way. If there's an agenda to where I'm going to let you grow in areas that benefit me, then that's a boss.
Right.
That's not a servant leader, and that's not someone that's going to grow that triple bottom line, which is people, profits, and taking care of the world around you, your planet.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm always trying to assess that where that line is, because I do want to help my team. I want to help my people grow and become better people because, like you said, I know that's going to help our organization and our bottom line and all that. And I'm always trying to assess, is that what my priority is, or am I really sincere in wanting to help that person? And I think I'm always flipping kind of back and forth, to be truthful. I think first and foremost, though, I want my people to be really happy because I guess I have the philosophy life is short, and I want to work with people that are really enjoying what they're doing and enjoying their life,
Exactly, and that's something that you having that awareness about yourself is where you then would make the best decision. I mean, I have like I said, I have businesses that bring me in just to do a couple of days of coaching a month or whatever, or have me on staff for 30 days that anyone can make an appointment and what they do is then it kind of gives that person the ability to be vulnerable in a space, but not necessarily with the person that they work for.
Right.
And so the messenger is equally as important as how the message is delivered. And so that it really comes back to, you as a business owner and a leader and how it works for you. And I love the awareness because so oftentimes, somebody says, well, I'll just take care of this or take care of that. And it's not working. My culture and my company is off. This isn't working. I said, well, who's at the head of the table?
Right.
You have to, and this is by no means a judgment of anything. This is literally, how can I make this, completely the best for everyone? Because at the end of the day, then everyone wins. And that's an extremely abundant mindset.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm trying to always do is just like, what's the best, what's the collective good here? Where can I bring the whole team up to something that's much more positive for all of us,
Right.
And it's so, I mean, I love it. And it's what's been fun is we just hired back a person that used to be in our firm, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, and just went on his own and then worked for other firms and then just came back. And it's really kind of fun. I haven't had a chance to get a total download yet, but just in a couple staff meetings, just to get his perspective of where we were and where we are now. And his, just after being in several staff meetings, he's like, wow, you guys are amazing what you do and how you do things and the positivity and all these
I love
things.
it.
And I love watching the other people's in my office's face. They're like, what's he talking about? It's like, well, it's
Yeah.
because you guys live it every day. You don't see it, But he's been on the other side of the fence and he's seen what it's like out there. And you guys just don't realize what you've got here.
Well, see, and that's so beautiful, Mark. Because if you liken that type of situation, this is the tough part. Is that nobody wants to lose an employee. Nobody wants someone to go and do the. I mean, and I always tell my kids that, even my own personal kids, but kids I coach and young adults, is that I'm like, the best thing you can do is when school is over is get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
I said, because you grow, you are self-sufficient, you figure things out, and the best thing that a parent can do is make sure you're equipped to do that. And whenever you do that, then when you come back, your entire perception has changed.
Sure.
And you can always tell the people that don't leave a small town or that don't necessarily grow. And then you go back for like your class reunion and you feel like you fell into a time warp.
Oh, totally. They're still sitting in the same chair in the same bar. And it's like, well, dude, you haven't left in 40 years?
I know.
I just went to my 40th reunion. Was it last year or the year before? And it's exactly what you just said. And I grew up in a small town in Durango, Colorado. And, it's just, I couldn't wait to leave. I mean, I love Durango. It's beautiful. But I was out of there when I was 17. And I was gone,
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the thing is today's world, we don't realize that, I mean, when our kids get to that age, or even employees that we have or somebody, and there's a little bit of friction, it's there for a reason. And we have to be in such a good space ourselves as community leaders, as parents, as business owners, to know that sometimes the best thing you can do is get out of the way.
Yeah, that's true.
And otherwise it's like the same thing with a relationship. There's so many relationships who are trying to force it to work, and it's like, but you don't understand. I mean, I work with some kids that I dearly love, and somebody asked me one day, they go, what's the worst part of your job? And I said, I go, a couple things. I said, for me to want a better life for you more than you want it, I said, that's difficult.
Yep.
I said, and then for me, whenever especially like my families that I get so attached, I said, to see them, to just walk away. I said, because but yet I always have the mindset of it's a gift to walk away because now you guys got this.
Yep.
And I go, but it's tough too. But it's fun when I see them a year or two later, or they'll touch base after a year or 6 months and just say, hey, we're going through some more transition. We've got this happening or that happening, and it's just so fun to see that growth. And when you try, and that's why I use the example of the client that was in therapy for 17 years, is that, she never actually got to use that growth because she was always going back to that same environment.
Right.
And the environment is literally what shifts and changes people and gives them that invitation.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear you talk because it's so similar to what we experience. So, I mean, we work in these houses sometimes 3, 4, 5. I've had houses I worked on for 12 years,
Wow.
So in a sense, and I say this all the time jokingly, in a sense, we're therapists. I mean, there are some jobs where I'm convinced I'm more of a therapist than I am an architect. And
it's like a hairstylist too.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you have no idea. But it's hard and clients don't realize this, but their houses, we get it's their house. But in a big part, it's part of our life and our time. And, there's houses I've spent hundreds, if probably not thousands of hours on. And it's part of my life, If I add up those hours and look at it as a proportion of how many hours I've lived in this life, well, I spent a good portion of it working on your house,
Right,
and so it kind of becomes your baby, and it is hard to walk away. And then, like you said, you might come back 3 years later and they want to add something to the, another garage or a playroom, and you relive all those memories, and you're like, oh my gosh. And it's like what you said. It's fun to see how they've grown and how the house has changed their life and how the kids have gone from 3 to 15, and it's just it's the most amazing thing,
It's truly a privilege, and I say that all the time. When somebody hires me, I don't care who they are or what they do. It is truly a privilege
Yeah.
to walk in that vulnerable space and to be willing to show up and take that on, and then to know, that you actually can walk away and you've served in such a way with
Right.
with who you are and your gifts and your talents, and you've grown somebody, and you,
Yeah.
like you said, you built this home. That's that is their sanctuary.
Oh yeah, it's such a rewarding thing, and it goes back to what you said earlier. If I did this for the money, there's no way in hell I would work on someone's house for 12 years. I mean, I just
No.
say screw you, go find someone else to be your therapist or whatever.
Exactly.
I just wouldn't do it. And so, the thing that I've kind of done is I do it because I love it, and I love the people that I work for and work with, and the money takes care of itself. It's just a miracle sometimes,
Always. Always.
and
It does.
we'll screw something up, and I'll say, okay, we got to replace this window. Let's just buy them a new window. It's not worth sitting here fighting over it for 6 months. And people go, well, that's going to cost you $5,000. Yeah, I know. I could run an ad in the stupid magazine for $5,000, and no one's even going to call me. So what's smarter,
Exactly.
And so,
and that's really what our world's missing. We're missing that intentionality of the human part of what we do.
right.
I had a young man I was coaching in the. He's getting into the financial industry, and he's wanting to, kind of make his mark. And I started asking him what his assets were, and he's like, assets. I go, yeah. I go, who are you? How are you going to be different? How can you add value to someone that isn't just, a black and white appointment? And that's really where I believe that so much of the human connection part, you cannot fake that.
No.
And that's why I said, with being in the coaching industry for so many years, and there's some great ones out there, and they've developed that, and it didn't come in a course. They might have gotten their certificates like I did and gone through their education and that, but to really be able to walk into someone's home and to make a difference, and to
that's
actually
huge.
be a value. It is, but it's a privilege. It's never escapes me. Whenever I work with someone, and it never escapes me, and
so
I know
beautiful.
that.
I love that.
And I think that's what every business, when you have that opportunity to show up that way, it's just another added layer.
Right. It's exactly right. So what tends to be some of the most prevalent issues your students seek your coaching for that you see in teens and clients in general?
Yeah. A big one is communication. That's a huge one, is because in today's world, we communicate through devices, and I always tell people, if you're communicating through text, you're miscommunicating. That's why we have emojis.
Yeah, and I tell you, the miscommunication, and I tell my staff this all the time, because you can do 30 texts and it'll be misinterpreted 27 out of those 30 texts, just because you're missing the tone, you're missing the body language, you're missing so many things. And I say, no, just pick up the goddamn phone and call them. And we had a good example this week, and I didn't even have to tell her. She figured it out on her own. And she says, man, I'm so glad I called her, because I solved it in 2 seconds. I said, see, Yeah.
But we have a whole generation, the millennials and Generation Z, even they all have, like we grew up with, a phone still connected to a cord, And so these kids grew up with a smartphone in their hand. And so on so many ways it's disabled, but yet we have generations under one roof. And so what you might perceive as disrespectful, it's just normal for your child.
How they say it. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I always tell people, I go, it is much easier to raise healthy kids than repair adults. And I said, so if we can bridge those gaps and make sure that we're communicating properly, like for instance, I had an 18-year-old who couldn't wait to go to college. She was so super excited. Her client, amazing girl. Her parents were also my clients. I coached them too. And she was like, I can't wait to go. I've got this amazing opportunity. This is going to be so amazing. And then the mom was like, well, oh my God. So like my house, you can't wait to get out of here. Well, oh my God. And so she was taking it in defense, and the daughter was taking it in excitement.
Yep.
So I sat them both down. I go, here's your point of reference. Here's your perspective. I said, your daughter, I said, the mom is hurt because her daughter's leaving her, and she wants time with her. I go, the daughter can't wait to spread her wings. And I looked at the mom. I said, let me reframe this for you. I said, do you realize you've given her a launching pad?
Yeah.
To where she feels safe enough to do this. I go, that's incredible. And the mom, and she started tearing up. And I said, a lot of it is just, and I have in my curriculum, I have the 12 pillars of sustainable living. And one of them is the art of reframing and realizing that your daughter is not doing this to you.
Right.
She's growing for herself. And a lot of times we parent, or we have relationships, and our point of reference is our past rather than their future.
Right.
And
Yep.
that
Exactly
and
right.
that and in that we have fear, and so
Yep.
being able to reframe that. So the communication is a big thing I see with families and businesses, with employees, is how are we communicating? How can we level that up? And then putting in those boundaries, that, like you said, there's a certain time and a place for a quick text.
Right.
Otherwise, I want you to pick up the phone. And
Right.
this is our company's policy. And I think that we went through that with, you couldn't even get a human being on the phone for years, everything was automated, which I understand. I understand being able to do that just for ease, but you lose so much within that. And that's why I said, earlier about the human connection, but it's a combination of communication. It's a combination of unhealed childhood trauma that is coming up for people, that a lot of people think that there's blame to be placed. And I'm not talking about a predatory situation. I'm talking about an experience that maybe your child had that you knew nothing about,
right.
or an experience that they weren't necessarily equipped for. And then when we don't address that, because a lot of times when someone hires me, that they think that I oftentimes, I shouldn't say a lot of times, it's oftentimes, very, very much, most of the time, when we sit down, we realize there's things that you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so once we can have those really transparent conversations, then we can decide how we're going to address this. And that's why I said earlier, there's always a point of entry. Another thing, a lot of times too, I work with brands that are trying, growing the brand director, the person behind the brand. Why are you doing this? Who is this? Are you doing this to just strictly, make money? Are you doing this because the next person's doing this?
Right.
Or is this truly authentic for you?
Interesting.
I was in fashion for years, and coached a lot of brands. And so a lot of that was along the same lines of, if you're going to do something, you might as well make it count.
Right.
And you might as well give a damn about it. And the fact that, you can be the next tech person, but that person that's coming up with that is authentically who they are. And you have to figure that out for yourself. And by all means, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Figure stuff out.
There's so much to all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's so complicated when you just think sometimes about having a dialogue or a conversation with someone. It's like what you said. You just don't realize the baggage or the emotions or the feelings that person is bringing to the conversation that you don't even understand. You don't even have an awareness of. And their reaction to what you're saying could be from a lot of things in the past that you just have no control over.
It could be triggers. And that's why instead of like the self-development, and that I always go after what I call personal mastery. And it's really knowing this about knowing yourself in and out, and being honest and truthful with yourself.
Right.
I sat with a group. I spoke to about 200 moms back in January, and it was interesting because, when I got off stage, there was like 15, 17 moms waiting there to talk to me. And so much of it was, and I love when this happened, because people are going, okay, that was me. I was that person making that mistake. And I'm like, that's all you need for an open doorway.
Yep.
Because, and I always say to people, my kids are my biggest teachers. Ugh. Even if I go kicking and screaming, they're my biggest teachers. Yep. And then I sometimes,
they know how to hit the nerve. That's for sure.
But they know how to hit the nerve because we allow them to hit it. And so
true.
That's the truth, though. And that's why I said it. That there's always that. They always give you that opportunity, that permission to reflect on that. And so it's such a layered process. But when we can get in with the point of entry, then I can adapt. What we're doing. And so communication is huge. Another big thing is also, structure of your home, structure of your company. What are your boundaries? What are your expectations? I do what I call define and align sessions with people, because if you've never defined your expectations, there's no way in hell someone can align with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then you get upset because things aren't being done that way, and then you've got resentment.
Right.
And then another thing is, a lot of it with people is understanding, defining what it means to be an integrity person. What is your character? What are your values, your beliefs, and your morals?
Right.
And that's a huge conversation within families. I always have families when I go through the curriculum with them, and then before I'm finished, I always ask them, come up with a family mission statement.
Yeah.
What do you guys stand for?
Right.
Who are you?
Yeah.
Because so oftentimes our identity is so much in question that we don't know who we are now or who we are becoming.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And that's why I tell my younger generations, I'm like, you guys, you're not even close to who you are going to be. So you're being seeded. So if you don't know what you want to do with your life, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. You can figure this out. You can ask yourself really powerful questions. You can, try different things on. And it's no different than trying to find your style. Or like when you design a home, it fits
Sure.
a person.
Yeah, no, that's what I try to tell my kids and even my employees. It's like, figure out, do what you do for your clients. You create a plan, and then you kind of work the plan, and it turns into a house. And it's like, write down what you want to become, write down who you want to become, write down where you want to go, and then just start creating the steps to get there, and you'll get there. But if you
Right.
just kind of randomly wake up every day and go, I wonder where I'm going to wander off today. Well, you're just going to wander, forever.
Right. And having that, realizing that you can live from design, not by default. And
Right.
it's so funny because when I was living in St. Louis, I was getting ready to go to college. And it was funny. You had to declare what you wanted to do. And I laughed so hard at this. I found some old notes, and it was, I wanted to go in mass communications. Well, I'm in it. It just doesn't look like I thought it was going to.
Different route. Yeah, that's what I say that one all the time too. It's like you can lay down that plan and you'll get there, but you're not going to get there in any way you dreamed, and it's going to be totally different. But you look back and you go, I did get there. It's just totally different than I thought,
My husband, we laugh all the time. I'll speak in front of, groups of people, and I'm like, it's mass communication. It just didn't look like I thought it was going to look like.
That's so funny. That's so good. So in 2017, you developed a coaching curriculum titled the Transformation Declaration, which is involved into your seminar called the Transformation Tour. Tell us all about that.
So the curriculum is about a 100-page workbook, and I have a video presentation that goes with it. I do these events. My next teen one is September. My next adult one is November. And what I do is we break this book down visually throughout the day. I bring in speakers that might coincide with different parts of the book. So the workbook is really identifying 12 pillars of sustainable living, which is kind of how you live your life from. So it's kind of like a prescription, if you will.
Very cool.
But the good thing is that I might have written the content, but you guys put in the important part. And it's just a guideline, It would be like you saying, okay, this is the space that you have for your floor. Now you pick out the floor.
Right.
It's the same type of thing. So we've got one of the pillars is pillar 2 is the paradigm of self-worth. So many times we struggle with what is our self-worth and how is it defined? And so we break that down. There's 12 different pillars. There's, art of reframing, different pillars. But throughout the book, there's a lot of really great information. We touch upon, the effects of social media today, that it's your personal brand and what do you want it to say about you? And then we talk about like relational flow, which is when you're in that space of purpose, things just work for you. You're in that flow and identifying that. It talks about, being able to actually identify who you're becoming based upon your answers. And then there's a declaration in there that you sign. And the declaration talks about, I declare these specific things over my life. And then you sign it. You have a witness sign it. And then it goes down to, I have the Constitution of the Constitution of Transformation in there, which really kind of breaks down, the fact that nobody owes you anything. This is all going to fall back on you and who you are. And we have to remember that when we're leaders or we're, heads of families, that, you can't, by giving people things, you take so much away.
Right.
And even though the intention might be to do something really, really good, they have to have that, that reasoning and that determination. And so there's a invitation at the beginning of it that talks about, it just asks for you to accept this invitation to show up for yourself.
Nice.
And then it goes through all the foundation of identifying the areas of growth, well-being or spiritual or physical, financial, all those kinds of things. And then it goes on to who you are as a person, asks a lot of tough questions about, really reflecting back on imprints or habits that you can identify about yourself that you wish to shift.
Yeah.
And then also imprints or habits that are really good that you want to bring forward. And then there's daily things. It's not the thing I love about why I did this. And literally it's so funny, Mark.
It sounds awesome.
I've been waiting to do my curriculum for so many years. And I literally, and I'm not kidding you, I would not do my big events until I had my curriculum because I wanted to be I wanted them to be so valuable and tangible tools takeaway that I didn't want to be another rah-rah cheerleading event. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, nope, people are going to get in the room and you're going to get some work done.
Yep.
And
got to do the work, baby.
So, you do. And so I ended up writing the curriculum, believe it or not, in 4 hours. And I was like, that was a complete divine download. And then I went back and edited it and changed it, and put the declaration in there, put the invitation in there, put the Constitution of Transformation in there. And then the thing that's so fun about it is you can do this whole workbook, and 12 months from now you can do it again, and it'll look completely different.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
And that's a tangible tool on growth, and that's really what I felt like I needed to be able to bring to the table. And then I have the 8 playbooks, which are like healthy boundaries, non-toxic world, courageous parenting, communication playbook, well-being is ageless, and those are really niche playbooks that we can get through really quickly. And it really just kind of meets people where they are. It's not complicated. It's not a course that is like a school course. It literally is growing people and creating an environment for growth.
Interesting. This whole thing is amazing. I mean, I guarantee you that Isabel and I, and what I've been thinking about as I've been listening to the podcast is I would love to have you sit in, I know we talked about you moving into the extra bedroom we have right here at the house, but I would also love to have you maybe sit in some of our meetings and staff meetings at the firm and maybe do some type of assessment of how we are relating and, just have that perspective. I think would be really interesting. I don't know if you do stuff like that. Maybe that is part of what you do.
No, absolutely, I do. There's times where I come in and just do what I call discovery sessions.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's coming in and discovering, where I could be of service, or if you guys have a specific thing that you want to work on, then I focus on that.
Cool.
And then just having that outside viewpoint, which is so important, and then being able to kind of realize that there are every single person in your organization or in any organization, including in your family, there's all that specific role, and determining roles is really important, because then that goes back to our identity. And the only time not the only time, but one of the biggest times when we struggle as human beings is when our identity is in question.
Right.
And that's kind of what we're doing right now, right out in the world. Our identity of a country is we're in crisis, and so there's a lot of uneasiness, and but even that's at a big level. But when you take it all the way down to your dinner table,
right,
it matters there too. And that's why I say it's such a holistic approach. And to have that wide awake opening of, this is what we can do. Don't get overwhelmed.
Right.
Pick a point of entry and do the work, because there will be ripple effects, and you will implement the keystone habits that will create your environment shift, even without you necessarily focusing so intently on it.
Yeah. Well, I always love how people, will spend more time and money making sure their cars are running good and won't put the same level of time and effort into themselves. And that
it's so true.
Right? And then for what you get, I mean, just a little bit of work on yourself and your values and your goals and your your means of communication and all these things. I mean, they have such huge paybacks for you. And I encourage anyone to do some of these type of programs that you're talking about, or therapy. I mean, they're you will learn so much about yourself that, again, you can't see yourself in the mirror. I mean, you need someone that can look at you from the outside and give you a real assessment of what you're doing right and what you're not, what you can improve on.
I think we're going to see a lot of that with what's going on right now, because I can tell you right now, with just in the last month of dealing with this, I have poked so many holes in people's coping skills and life skills.
Interesting.
And I tell them, I always sit down, I go, the number one coaching tool that I can give you, the number one tool that you can carry with you forever, is a mirror. And being able to look at yourself honestly and openly, and to realize that that you have that ability to shift and change that. But it takes owning your own shit and being accountable, and being held down.
It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's like, even with my kids, it's funny. Like, I have one playbook that says well-being is ageless, and they fight me on like the Red Bulls and this kind of stuff and that kind of stuff. And so when we have like 85 teens in a room, I always tell them, I said, okay, I go, y'all love your freedom, you love your car, right? I said, if I gave you a car at your 16th birthday and said, this car has to last you the rest of your life,
right?
That means it gets you to work, to your friends, to call, all over. I go, you're going to take really good care of it.
Right.
I go, but yet you put trash in your body every single day.
I know.
How does that make sense?
Doesn't make sense. I totally agree with you. So you've got a couple websites. Tell us about your 2 websites.
So the one is called Officially Tracey Martin, and it's TRACEY Martin.com.
Which is beautiful, by the way. I was looking at it. It's gorgeous. I encourage everyone to go there. You got recipes. You got all kinds of cool stuff on there.
All kinds of fun stuff, yeah. And then the Sustainable in Stilettos one that's all about the book. So the book that I wrote a year ago 2 years ago was called Sustainable in Stilettos. And the premise is, within the fashion industry and the world and the environment and the awakening of how we are in this world. But the book ends with really a call to action, which is for each one of us. And it doesn't call people out. It calls you to action to show up in your own life. Mm-hmm. And, how do you make your choices? What materials do you buy? What food do you eat? Who do you hang around with? What's your sphere of influence? What kind of information do you consume and music you listen to? And just actually really reaching for higher ground in all aspects of your life.
That's beautiful. I love it. No, this is fantastic. I'm so glad you kept after me to get you on here. And I know I think we've only met one or two times. I know we met at the Henry one morning. We bumped into each other. But you are an amazing lady, and
thank you.
I'm just so impressed with, like I said, your website and what I've just learned today talking to you and what you're doing, your energy. I can hear it in your voice and I can feel it in your spirit. And I hope you are willing to come back, because we barely scratched the surface. I gave you these questions, and I have about 4 or 5 more I want to go down with you sometime. So hopefully we can get you back on here again.
I would be completely honored, Mark, anytime.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. We'll add all the links and your websites and all that to the story notes at the bottom of the podcast. And hang in there, keep going, keep inspiring. I mean, you're the epitome of inspiring living in my book. So thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. And you can catch me on Instagram. That's like real life stuff too.
I love it.
That's like real life in real time. So I appreciate it. I love what you're doing, and the opportunity to share everything is my privilege.
Thank you so much. Hang in there and stay safe, my friend.
Thanks, Mark. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I want to say a big thank you to my good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. The Stockett team, along with so many others, are coming really close to the finish line in our demonstration kitchen and our new expansion of our Candelaria design offices. I've had the pleasure of working with the Stockett team for nearly 40 years on some amazing projects, and trust me, they are the epitome of excellence when it comes to tile, marble, and granite work, bar none. Their skill and customer service is impeccable, and the bottom line is they are just good people. I have traveled with, dined with, and just had good times both personally and professionally with Dave Stockett and his lovely wife, Becky, and they are the best. When it comes to your next kitchen, make sure Stockett Tile and Granite is part of your team. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.